Welcome to Eat Theatre, Sleep, Repeat with myself, Ged Mills. And once again, we've got another couple of great guests in for you. And this is all to do with being behind the scenes at the Grand Theatre. So we have our special guest, Shaun Conboy, the two Shauns, really. Shaun Conboy and Shaun Gorringe. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. I'm going to go with the first, Shaun. You are you described you're a photographer, more of a specialist photographer at the Grand.
Absolutely. I'm an architectural interior photographer, and I've worked with the Grand, I hate to say it, for about 30 years since the start of my career, actually. So I've always taken photographs of the Grand to support the Grand in many ways and help them in any way I can, really. And that's led to us doing the workshops that we do at the Grand, where people can come and get a little bit of expertise from me and an opportunity to photograph this fantastic theatre. Yeah.
How did you get into the architecture side of photography? Because a lot of people, first of all, it's a hobby, isn't it?
Yes.
You enjoy it. You enjoy taking pictures. Then maybe someone will say, "You don't mind doing our wedding, do you?" And then it goes on sports and stuff like that, and people niche out. How did you niche into what you're doing?
Well, I've always been a photographer. I've always wanted to be a photographer, and being a small boy, so it's been my career for my life. As a very small boy, I always had an interest in bridges and tall buildings and things like that. So I had an interest in buildings, possibly even before photography, to be honest. And then when I started to work in photography and I went to Blackpool Photo College, the famous Blackpool Photo College, I realized I didn't like being in a studio. I got quite frustrated. One day in a studio is enough for me. I like to be out on location, and I like photographing big spaces, big areas. And that's how really my interest took me down that particular pathway. So, because you've got to photograph what you feel passionate about to put the right input into your photography. So yeah, I always had this interest in buildings and spaces. And what really made the final transition, I would say, was I went to a talk by a famous photographer called George Tanner, who trained under John Maltby, probably one of the UK's most famous architect photographers. And just seeing how he worked and how he lit interior spaces, I was inspired. And so that's the way I followed my career.
Yeah. And the other Shaun is the operations manager at the Grand Theatre.
That's right.
And that is, when anyone says to me they're an operations manager, I have so much admiration and respect for these people, because the running of things, the organization of things, like I say, you must just have lists and sticky notes and everything everywhere. But tell us specifically what you do, because you're kind of niching down on tours and stuff.
Yeah, so you took the words out of my mouth there. It's lists on my book. I just have a book full of lists and constantly rewriting a list of things that need to be done. But in terms of what I do at the Grand, is I look after all the operational stuff. So it's all the front of house staff, all the cleaners, all that sort of not terribly glamorous stuff that you don't see day to day, that has to happen to make it happen and make the magic So I do all of that stuff. I look after all that stuff. But at the moment, I'm looking after the tours as well, which I'm really enjoying, because it kind of takes me out of my day to day. So I get to meet small groups around 20 people and show them around the theatre and share with them the beauty that is the Grand Theatre and some of the stuff that you wouldn't necessarily see. So they get to go backstage and things like that.
How popular are these tours?
Yeah, they are quite popular. I didn't quite realize when I said yes, I'll do it. So we're around about 20 to 30 people in a group that we show around. So yeah, quite popular.
Now, is there little nooks and crannies of the Grand Theatre? Because a lot of these old buildings, especially in Blackpool, there's just little hideaways or little routes that people don't know about, but staff do. And am I right in thinking there's a very, very top bit of the Grand that's super, or is this a complete myth? You're looking at me as if like, no, mate, this is there's loads of myths that come about, isn't there? There's one, I think, there's a great myth in Blackpool about, and again, whether it's true or not, I don't know, from the tower to like the Winter Gardens, there's a big tunnel that goes underneath and stuff like that. But at the Grand, is there any like hidden hideaways that these tours get to see?
I have to say that I have looked for these tunnels that run underneath, apparently, Blackpool, and I can't find them. But yeah, there's lots of different nooks and crannies that we take people to. They get to go underneath the stage, which is everybody has to see that. And we've got the original traps are there, so they've been boarded over the years, the stage, but the trap doors are actually still there, so you can still see where they would have been. So back in the day, they would have done productions with people popping up through the stage floor and things, and the melodramas. People get to see that. A question we get asked a lot is about the the dwarf bar, the famous dwarf bar, and this is this is probably what you were referring to. There is what we think maybe have been a bar over time.
And is this at the very top?
In the gallery, right at the top. So, I can't really find any evidence to suggest that it is, but you never know. It's one of them sort of urban myths.
Well, that'd be interesting. If anyone is watching or listening, if anyone's got any evidence to send on to Shaun, because there's loads of Facebook groups, isn't there? Blackpool History Past and stuff. You just wonder if somebody will have any sort of knowledge, or, you know, there's a granddad, great granddad, mother, whatever, that would have can maybe back up that, because that's the one I've heard, and I'm like,
everybody asks about the dwarf bar.
That's the one I've heard, and you're like, is it a myth? Is it not? It's same with the tunnels under the town. You know, is that a myth or not? And
a great story, if not.
Yeah. Let's just don't tell us if it's true or not. Let's just keep it as it is. Shaun, back to you with the photography. I see it on the website. Like, it's always advertised a lot on the Grand Theatre's website about these workshops and courses that you do.
Yeah.
Tell us more about those.
Well, it all started really because I'm lucky enough to be an ambassador for Hasselblad cameras and Linhof cameras and Bronco Flash. We used to do a lot of test shoots when new equipment was coming out at the Grand, because it was a great test of a camera, really, or a lens or a lighting product.
Why is that?
Because of the tonal range of the Grand, from the very bright chandeliers down to the dark shadows, all the detail that's in the Grand, the amazing amount of detail. So it really helps the lens show all the edges and all the quality. It was a really good test. And one of the manufacturers asked if we could do a workshop there. They were so impressed with the interior of the Grand, and we did it, and it was a great success. So that was for professional photographers. And the Grand asked, would I perhaps do workshops for them, for the local people and people across the country? So that's how it started, really. And we run two types of workshop. We run a basic workshop, which is, you know, anybody, even from a camera phone to a reasonable camera. And we do an advanced workshop, which is a much smaller number of people. And then we can really nub into some of the lighting and stuff which goes on in these interior spaces.
That's interesting, the phone stuff, because like you say, I think maybe a lot of people might be listening or watching and thinking, oh, yeah, but I can't afford a camera. I haven't got, you know, everyone's got a camera on the phone. So you do it from camera phone, and because something I've always said, and we've got cameras here, and I've always said this, you can have £5,000 camera if you want, but if you don't know how to use it, it's useless. All that money is useless.
Correct.
And you know, it's same with like video work as well. If you know what you can shoot on your phone, your camera phone nowadays is actually film quality, if you know how to use it, and vice versa with that. But so you can take people with phones and just come and actually maybe get the knowledge first before they...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would say the majority of people on the course have got some sort of camera. And what most people are doing is they're wanting to take their photography on, because like you say, with camera phones now, it's quite easy to take a reasonable photograph. But people get frustrated because it's all working in an automatic mode. Sometimes they're taking a scene and thinking, that's not how I really wanted it to appear, because the camera or the phone's making decisions for you. What we're going to try and teach you to do on the courses is to get more control. Go into manual mode, which you can even do on a phone. You can make a phone a manual sort of camera. So we're teaching you to try and capture the sort of images you perhaps wanted to capture, giving people a little bit of confidence, like baby steps, a little bit of confidence, that you gives yourself a bit more confidence and take your photography further on. But with the Grand, we've also got this ability for you to be able to take photographs, this amazing interior, because we get some very experienced photographers coming on the courses who just want the opportunity, really, to photograph the Grand Theatre.
Shaun, back to you then. The other Shaun was saying about the great architect work, the amazing theatre, the design of everything as well. Is that what you go through with the tour? How the Matcham designed everything, and
very
go
much
more into depth on that?
Yeah, so we tell during the tour, we talk about how the theatre was first designed, and the genius that was Frank Matcham that a lot of people tend not to understand is the cantilevered system that he created, which meant that people, when they come to the theatre, they don't have a pillar that they're sat in front of to obstruct their view. And that's something that Frank Matcham designed for theatre and put in the Grand. We talk about how that idea was then taken from theatres like the Grand, and places like the Nottingham Theatre Royal has a Matcham auditorium, but it is not a Matcham theatre, for example. So we touch on that, and we talk about the way that the the theatre has slightly changed over the years. There are things that, so the ceiling, for example, is not the original ceiling. It would have been, Matcham came back into theatre to embellish it after it had opened, because they needed to get it open to get revenue coming through the door. So
what about sort of restoration on a place like the Grand Theatre? I mean, how many years, you know, like with operations, you think, oh, like the bulb's gone, let's replace that, but it's not quite as easy with things in the Grand Theatre. You know, how hard is that at times, and what do you have to do the process of all that?
It can be a bit of a nightmare. We do tend, I mean, at the moment I'm painting certain things around, trying to touch things up with paint, and you can't just grab a tin of paint and touch it up, as I'm finding out. You've got to make sure you match it to the original colours, and we've got to speak with our heritage people to make sure that we're not going to do any damage to anything. So it is a challenge, but a challenge that we relish.
Yeah, it is. I suppose grade listed, it's tough, isn't it?
Very much so. Yeah.
And back to you, Shaun, with you talked about how lighting is so important in photography as well. Again, what tips do you use when you sort of maybe lighting a theatre and trying to get those right pictures? Like I say, camera wise, great, but lighting is massive.
That's a massive learning curve. I mean, when we do the sort of main shots we do for the Grand, when we shoot it, say commercially, professionally, or whatever you want to say, we use a lot of light, because when you get into older in spaces like Matcham architecture, the lighting at that time, the electric lighting was, you know, fairly primitive. So we have to put a lot of our photographic light, and I use flash, Broncolor flash in my case, so we can light different areas of the space. And more importantly, when you're lighting the space and putting flash into the space, the light goes into the surfaces and comes back and brings all the colors and the details out. So the light's not only recording the scene, but it's adding something to the surfaces, because it's so, I mean, it's just a joy to photograph the Grand Theatre. I mean, it's a privilege, really. And I'll tell you, one of the really interesting things about the workshops is virtually every workshop we do, when we look at people's photographs afterwards, we have a little half an hour at the end where we look at what people have got, we always find a new picture. Somebody's found something quite unique in the theatre, and I think that's a testament to the design of the theatre. Yeah, the light is absolutely key. And we show on the basic course, we show you a few little tricks you can do with the light. On the advanced course, we take that on to another level. And it was the reason we did the advanced course was people were asking for that, really, so we can just take the light level up a notch that way.
What is the difference between the basic and the advanced course?
Well, on the basic one, it's usually up to about 15 people, I think, on the basic course, and we do a little talk from myself about the basics of photography. We'll then go in the theatre and I'll take a couple of shots and show them a few little tricks, and then the rest of the period of the time you can go and photograph all areas of the theatre, you know, all the different levels, right up to the gods, down to the circle, dress circle, and stalls. And myself and my assistant are there for all that time to help you with a lot of one-to-one stuff. On the advanced course, it's limited to 5 people. And then we'll bring in some of my professional cameras, like the Linhof cameras, so we can talk about perspective control. And we'll bring in some of the Broncolor flash and actually light some areas of the theatre up with you, so you can capture some of the images under actual professional photographic lighting.
And I'm presuming these courses as well aren't just for people interested in taking pictures of buildings. It's more for, you know, obviously if you want to do sport, if you want to do weddings, if you want to do like brochure work, but it gives you that snapshot of, you know, an advanced cameraman, if you will.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's particularly the basic one. It'll give you all the basics of photography, you know, talk about apertures and shutter speeds and color temperatures.
Which is a science, isn't it?
It is a science.
I've learned all that, and it is a science. Yeah.
I don't want to get it too,
no,
you know,
it is a
people,
science. Yeah.
But we help with that tremendously. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, as I said, in the larger part of the session, when you're taking your own photographs, there's a lot of one-to-one. So if you've got specific questions, you can talk to me or my assistant who's experienced as well, and we'll help you in any way we can. And it's all about engaging people, like the tours that Shaun's doing, engaging the people with the theatre, letting them make the most of this amazing. I mean, I'm a massive fan of Matcham architecture. It's just a joy to be in there. Really.
Yeah, it's a beautiful theatre.
Great opportunity.
If I know it is on the website a lot, your workshops, how can people find and get involved with them?
Just basically, if they go on the Grand Theatre's website, the dates will be on there. You book it through the normal booking system, and away we go, you know, and just do it that way. Yeah,
and like I say, is anybody that is interested in photography, even if you think, oh, I might have a go at that, just go along to the basic one. And if I'd say as well, you don't have to have a super duper camera at all, if you just want to get into it before maybe, and you might not like it, for example, but don't go buying expensive equipment.
Yeah.
Go on a course like this, check it out, and then you might go, actually, I might then invest in a camera.
Do you know, I can't say how many people have been on the course and then bought a better camera.
That
really does happen. And then sometimes they come back again with their better camera. And don't be frightened if you haven't got a tripod. We always have spare tripods there, so you can try your camera on a tripod. So we can help you with all those things. It's just trying to make the most of photography, make the most of what you want to do with your photography, even if it just helps your day-to-day photography of the family and stuff, whatever we can do to help.
Yeah, and pictures nowadays, we look at social media, it's everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
We think about holiday snaps back in the day, or obviously when I was a kid, you have to get the albums out the loft. But now, obviously, with Facebook and Instagram and the rest, we all have there's memories come up, don't they? 10-year memories, and I suppose how important pictures are nowadays for just referencing.
Absolutely vital. I think you're absolutely correct about that. I mean, it's all there's never more photographs been taken really with the advent, but perhaps some of the times people aren't getting the best of what they can get out of those photos. And we also get people come on workshops who are just keen on the theatre, really. Want to, a bit like the tour, they want to photograph the theatre because they love the interior space. So we'd love to see it, because it's all about supporting the Grand. Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do. Obviously, Shaun's doing a great job. We're all trying to support the theatre. That's what it's all about.
All on the website, blackpoolgrand.co.uk. The tours as well, Shaun, I presume that's a similar thing. You can book on through the Grand?
Yep, through the website. We do 2 tours. We do a shorter version and we do a longer version. The short version.
Now what's the difference?
Short version is only 30 minutes. We don't quite go up as high as, so if you're scared of heights, don't book on the the longer tour, because we're going up all them stairs. Yeah. As so the short tour is a little. I say it's shorter. The last one I did that's meant to be 30 minutes, it did still last an hour and a half.
Is it because of just maybe questions and obviously your explanations?
Definitely. People once we get talking about it, and then they say, "Oh, can we go in here?" And I never say no. I never say no. So I'll open the door and people can have a look at things. So yeah, there's 2 tours. 30 minutes and an hour and a half.
Fantastic. And get that on the website as well. How much, because we see just the theatre and maybe see like the theatre barn just around it, but how much is like what's behind the stage and then what's left and right and behind everything that we don't see? Is there
anything that people don't realize, and I touch on it during the tour, when we bring you in and you're stood in the auditorium, you see that beautiful architecture, you see all the plasterwork, the fibrous plasterwork, the horsehair plasterwork is beautiful. And then we go backstage and it's very, very different. It's not fancy at all. And people sometimes ask, why is it so different back here? And it's because this is the machine, this is the mechanics of what we do. We're here to work and we work in a work environment. So it's like a factory for us in that respect. We do go upstairs. We go up to the fly tower where we fly the sets from, and I explain all about how that. I'm going to spoil a surprise, so I explain how all that works, and we talk about the history of theatre. I touch on a bit of not just about the Grand, but theatre in general. So how theatre came to be. One little nugget. Why is a green room called a green room? Do you know?
No, I don't know that actually. No.
So they used to go traveling around in the medieval times. They'd travel around to towns and cities, and they'd do passion plays where they'd reenact passages from the Bible on the village green. And the actors that were doing that would rest in the local tavern in the room upstairs. And so they called that the green room, and hence green room in a theatre.
Great nugget. And there's probably loads of them. There's loads of them. I love things. I do love things like that. And like you say, those little facts and myths, like you say, the bar upstairs, the tunnels and stuff like that. I love all that sort of stuff. So all on the website for you guys, blackpoolgrand.co.uk. You can book on your photography, basic or advanced, lots of stuff to do there, and the tours as well. And can they come and maybe go to the box office? Are you all done at the
you wcan do it through the box office as well, but the website's probably the best way to go.
As well. Brilliant, guys. Thanks so much for popping in. It's been really, really interesting, and good luck with everything as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Eat, Theatre, Sleep, Repeat.
Like, share and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode.